Hey everyone, what's going on? Jeff here from Films at Home, and today we're going to take a look at 300 newly released on 4K Blu-ray. Hey everyone, so thanks for coming back to the channel today for this review. As I mentioned, we're going to take a look at 300 on 4K Blu-ray today. Just got this in this morning from Warner Brothers, was able to check it out tonight and wanted to get this review out for you before it's even available so that you can pre-order it and know whether you're getting a good 4K disc or not. So with that being said, thank you to Warner Brothers for sending this disc. Always excited to get their stuff. They've done a great job in 4K recently with some of their transfers. So let's check out what 300 looks like, what it sounds like, and what you're getting in the package. So 300 is a very interesting movie visually. Now, if you've seen this movie before, you know that it is very stylistic. Zack Snyder has a certain way of making movies, and 300 is sort of right up there with like movies like Sin City, The Spirit, other movies like in that time period where they were really playing with visual effects and different cinematography and just different ways that movies looked. There seemed to be like a time period in there where people were really experimenting, and 300 probably kicked that off. That stylistic kind of look and feel became so popular because of this movie. Now, the interesting thing about 300 is that it's actually shot on film. Zack Snyder shot the entire thing on 35mm, but 95% of everything else is visual effects. So what they would do is they would actually stick the actor or actors or actresses in front of a blue screen. So not using a green screen, but using a blue screen. And this graphic I found on an article about how they shot the movie explains it really well. But it's almost like how they do the weather on the news. That's how they shot things. They did everything in the forefront with the actors and actresses, shot it on film, and then they did it in front of a blue screen and visually added CGI backdrops and things like that afterward in post-production. So it's really interesting because it is an extremely grainy picture. It's 35mm, but it's a 2K digital intermediate because of the amount of visual effects they used, especially back in 2006. There's no way they were going to render those at 4K. So ultimately the movie's rendered at 2K, but it is 35mm, but it is visually heavy with CGI and visual effects and blue screen effects. So that's what makes it really interesting to review. Now, I thought it looked pretty good for the most part. HDR here is obviously super helpful. It really adds a lot to that stylistic image that Zack Snyder was creating. I mean, the highlights are obviously the red capes, the blood, the way they stylize a lot of the blood and the gore and the battle scars and things like that throughout the battles. That is really a highlight. The rest of the movie, as you know, is kind of like this. It's either very dark, darkish blue. When they're fighting on the cliffs, especially, it's kind of like a dark yellow, orangey tint to it. So there isn't a whole lot of like bright backdrops throughout the movie, but those highlights like the capes and like the Persian armor and their costumes, and well, their costumes in the movie, but their armor and their battle uniforms and things of that nature really stand out because the background is kind of bleak. There isn't much happening. It is a pretty bleak background, and that makes the highlights stand out more. So that was nice. But it is gonna probably drive some people nuts with how grainy it truly is. Part of that has to do with the fact that it's 35mm that's downscaled to 2K, so we're not getting a full 4K resolution. So the grain structure is a little bit heavier. It's definitely not as finely detailed as some other movies that I've talked about shot on 35mm that got 4K transfers directly from that film source. Because of those visual effects and because of the 2K, you are definitely getting a little bit heavier grain than maybe what you're used to. But again, it is a stylistic choice by the director. Now, in this case, I do like the choices that Zack Snyder made with this movie. I really like the way it looks visually. I don't mind the grain. Sometimes the way that a director decides and a cinematographer decides to shoot the movie can really make for a poor 4K image. And I think that some people may be disappointed with the 4K here. Because of that heavy grain, you're probably expecting a super clean digital picture because most of this movie is, digitally based. But the fact that the source is 35mm and that serves as the base for the entire movie that's what gives you the grain. So overall, I mean, detail is really nice. It is a 2K upscale, but it's probably one of the better 2K upscales I've seen. Just know to expect some serious grain, and that's not an issue with your player or your setup. That's just a matter of the way that the movie was shot and the decisions they made back in 06 to do all of those things, shoot 35mm with CGI. And so it is supposed to look like that. May drive some of you nuts, but ultimately I like the stylistic look of this. I like what Zack Snyder's done, and I really loved the movie. So visually for me, it was a pretty solid. I wouldn't put this up there in the category of true 4K movies, but for 2K upscales, this is pretty darn good. Now for audio, we've got a Dolby Atmos track on this, so thumbs up Warner Brothers, you're getting that latest Atmos track, even if you don't have the capabilities. It's there for you in the future, but it does sound great. Some of the highlight moments, I mean, when the Persian army kind of shoots the arrows, this is about 40 minutes into the movie, shoots the arrows across at the Spartans, and it completely covers the sky. The arrows floating, that height effect there is really nice because you hear the bend of the arrows coming up and then coming back down to earth, and then as they're hitting the shields and hitting the ground. That was a standout scene for me. Obviously, a lot of the battle sequences are really nice. You know, when they bring in the big monster elephants and things like that, like those are cool sequences. When they really bring in like the full army and they have the huge battle scenes, you know, towards the end, those are really good. Dialogue super clear. This is Sparta, has never sounded as good. So overall, a very good Atmos track. I would rate the Atmos track as a bigger upgrade than the visuals on this. So if you're an audiophile and you really like the best audio you can get, I really enjoyed this Atmos track. I thought it was really good. And I would probably give that a 4.5 out of 5 versus the video maybe a 3.5 or a 4 out of 5. So the Atmos is a highlight for me. Now, packaging wise, pretty standard slipcover. You've seen this artwork everywhere. That's, you know, King Leonidas, Gerard Butler right in front and center. Again, on the back, you've seen this artwork everywhere. So it's pretty standard stuff, nothing too special. Same on the inside. Then you've got your Blu-ray and your 4K disc. No artwork on the 4K. Does come with a digital code, which should redeem in 4K. So that's a little added bonus. It will redeem on Movies Anywhere. And then real quick, I do want to mention, because I always forget this, but for audio, we have English, French, and Spanish subtitles. Those are available on the 4K. Now for special features, I actually couldn't find my Blu-ray copy of 300, so I was looking online and trying to compare the special features from the previous release, which those aren't always 100% accurate, but from what I can tell, there aren't any new special features on here. We got some additional scenes, Frank Miller's vision realized on film, 300 Spartans, fact or fiction, who were the Spartans, a couple webisodes, which are like old, basically like before YouTube was really popular. You do like a webisode. Some of you guys watching this might not even know what that is, and I'm young. Commentary by director Zack Snyder, and then a few more really simple features that aren't worth mentioning. So, you know, it's a pretty standard release in terms of packaging and special features. Nothing too crazy here, pretty standard stuff, and most of it is ported over from that Blu-ray. So, you know, there wasn't much to talk about in terms of that. So overall, I mean, as long as you come in with your expectations set appropriately, you have to remember this is a 2K upscale using 35mm and a lot of digital effects. So it's going to be grainy, and it's going to be grainy even in the backgrounds, because they kind of have spread the grain across everything, which is good because the visual effects don't look out of place. They have the same grain as, you know, the stuff that was shot on film. But you may be disappointed in that. And I just want to say that, you know, just don't be. Just as long as you know what to expect with this movie and you remember how it looked and don't think it's going to change, this is a better version of it. Colors are better, the detail is better, and the grain structure is definitely better than on the Blu-ray, which is actually an extremely grainy Blu-ray from what I remember. And having watched this release here, the Blu-ray disc that comes with this, it definitely looks like the same Blu-ray disc. It is very grainy because you're only getting a 1080p image. The 4K upscale definitely helps, and this is probably one movie more than many others that really benefits from the upscale, even though it's a 2K, because of that 35mm source. So I would give it a solid 4 out of 5 overall. I'd say a 3.5 on the picture, 4.5 on you know, the Dolby Atmos audio, and then a 3.5, 4 on special features because we didn't lose any, but we didn't really gain any. So it's a pretty average release. But, you know, overall 4 out of 5. If you're a fan, I'd recommend it. It's probably worth upgrading, especially because the previous Blu-ray was kind of grainy and muddy, and you know, it's a darker movie too, so the HDR really helps with that, helps things stand out in those darker environments. So yeah, it's a worthy upgrade. Don't expect like the greatest 4K you've ever seen, but based on, you know, the fact that it's so stylistic and so interestingly shot, this is a good 4K to upgrade to, I would say. So thanks for watching. I'll put a link to this in the description. If you're interested in purchasing, use my link and that helps support my channel, which I really appreciate. Also, please make sure to check out all the new merchandise that I've put out, the new Films at Home logo merch and the new Physical Media Forever merch. Both of those through the end of October, I'm giving $1 per sale back to the designer. I paid him for the designs, I paid him up front, and you know, I didn't try to get anything for free. You got to pay people like graphic designers, things like that. But I also just wanted to say to him, hey, like, these came out awesome. I'll give you $1 for every sale. So I'm helping support him as well. And he did a great job with those designs. So definitely check them out and let me know what you think. Otherwise, follow me on Instagram. Stay up to date by subscribing and turning your notifications on. And make sure you like this video so other people see it. Really appreciate all your support. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.